You ever wonder if the companies you buy from are as green and ethical as they claim to be? We hear so much about ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance. But let's be honest, it's really hard to separate what's a real commitment from what's just, good marketing. So how do we find out what they actually care about?
Well, that is the big question we're going to tackle today. And we're going to use this really powerful new tool to, essentially, listen in on the unscripted, unfiltered conversations of top executives. We're going to find out what's really on their minds, when the PR team isn't hovering over their shoulder. Okay, so to get to the real truth, we've got to look past the shiny press releases and those super polished annual reports, right? We need to find the place where the corporate speak just kind of falls away, where things get raw and unfiltered, a place where you can see what the real priorities are when the pressure's on. And it turns out, that place is the corporate earnings call. Think about it. On one hand, you've got the official reports, all glossy, perfectly planned, and definitely PR approved. But then you've got these quarterly calls with financial analysts. And those, they are way more spontaneous, they're timely, and honestly, they often give you a much more candid, a much more real picture of what a company is actually focused on.
So it's no surprise that researchers have figured out these earnings calls are an absolute goldmine of raw, honest information. They're like this unique window into what a company's genuine priorities are, far away from all the marketing fluff. It shows us what executives are actually grappling with, from one quarter to the next.
So what makes these calls so special? Well, according to the research, it boils down to 3 key things. First off, they're super timely. You get a fresh look every single quarter. Second, you have those unscripted Q&A sessions that, force some really genuine off-the-cuff conversations. And third, and this is the big one, the transcripts are all publicly available. That creates this massive, massive data set that's just sitting there waiting to be analyzed.
And when I say massive, I am not kidding. For this particular study, researchers pulled together and analyzed a staggering, get this, 9,382 earnings call transcripts. And these are from companies in the S&P 500 ESG index, stretching all the way from 2017 to 2024. That is a ton of data.
So, the obvious question is, how on earth do you even begin to analyze almost 10,000 documents? I mean, they're all packed with really complex financial and corporate jargon. Well, the short answer is, you don't. You get a high-tech detective to do it for you. And that detective, of course, is artificial intelligence.
What the researchers did was they built this really sophisticated framework. It uses a technology that, in simple terms, teaches computers how to understand human language. The best way to think about it is like a high-tech codebreaker. It's designed specifically to listen in, to interpret, and to find all the hidden patterns in corporate speak, but on a massive, massive scale.
Okay, so here's how this AI detective actually got the job done. First, it gathered all those thousands of transcripts. Step 2, it scanned every single one of them looking for any mention of 316 specific ESG-related issues. After that, it used this really powerful AI, you can think of it as a super reader, to summarize just the relevant parts of the conversations. And then finally, it analyzed all those summaries to figure out what the core repeating topics were. All right, so we've got the data, we've got the AI detective on the case. Now for the really exciting part. After this AI sifted through millions of words, and I mean thousands of hours of executives talking, what did it find? What secrets did it uncover? What are these companies really talking about behind the scenes?
The first big reveal was actually a huge surprise. I mean, think about it. There are literally hundreds of different ESG issues a company could be talking about. But the AI found that the conversations time and time again always revolved around just 7 core topics. Only 7. And here are those 7 topics, all neatly mapped to the 3 pillars of ESG. So under G for governance, you've got financial management and political engagement. Makes sense. For E, the environment, it's all about energy consumption and the energy that goes into making their products. And then for S, the social pillar, it's a big one. Customer and workforce stuff, healthcare and community impact, and human rights.
So this chart really gives us a great visual of what's dominating the conversation. And what just jumps out at you is the huge focus on social and governance issues. So you have to ask, why is that? Well, it's probably because things like how happy your customers are, how you treat your employees, and being transparent with your finances, all that stuff has an immediate, direct impact on the bottom line. We're talking reputation, sales, and of course, shareholder value. But here's where it gets really interesting. The AI didn't just put these topics into buckets, it also looked at how they relate to each other. And this is where we find the final and maybe the most powerful insight of all. It turns out these topics aren't separate things at all.
So that brings us to the crucial question, right? Are companies talking about their money, their people, and the planet in totally separate, isolated boxes? Or is there some deeper connection that ties it all together?
Well, to find out, the AI generated this similarity matrix. It's pretty simple to read. The brighter the color, the stronger the connection between two topics. And just look at it. It's a web of bright colors, not a bunch of lonely, isolated boxes. The AI's conclusion was clear. These topics are deeply, deeply interconnected. When executives talk about financial management, they are almost always also talking about social responsibility and their environmental impact. It's all linked. And what about the single strongest link, the brightest spot on that map? It was between corporate financial management and customer and workforce management. The similarity score was incredibly high. So what does that mean in plain English? It means that when executives talk about money, they are almost always at the same time talking about their people. We're talking employees and customers. The two are totally inseparable.
And this all leads us to the study's ultimate conclusion, and it is a powerful one, especially for any business leader out there. The analysis proved that companies that actually prioritize and talk openly about social responsibility, they don't just get better ESG scores, they also see better financial performance. So it's true, that old saying, doing good really is good for business.
So what this AI has shown us is that what gets talked about in the open is directly linked to what actually gets done and ultimately how well a company performs. And that leaves us with one last really fascinating question to think about. If AI can figure all this out just by listening to the conversations we're having today, what should companies, and really all of us as their customers and investors, be talking about next?